How many times do you leave a movie and think, damn, I didn't see that one coming? Well, a lot of the times if you pay close enough attention, or even just pay close attention at all, you'll find that the ending will be given to you. This is common for filmmakers to do, as it is fun to see if your audience is clever enough or if they are smart enough to sneak one by you. Before we get started, make sure you take a quick moment to click on that subscribe button. You'll join our notification squad and stay up to date with these types of videos and more. One more thing, can you guess what feature film these emojis are showing? Find out at the end of the video. Alright, let's get started. Action! Star Trek Into Darkness. J.J. Abrams' 2013 film Star Trek Into Darkness doesn't exactly start off slowly. We're thrown right into the middle of a dire mission wherein Spock nearly sacrifices himself to ensure the discreet nature of his mission and to save a young planet in an emergency. Shortly after, Starfleet Academy is attacked by an unknown terrorist threat and our beloved Captain Pike is slaughtered. When our protagonist Jim approaches Marcus in order to gain permission to cross into Klingon territory in order to track down the terrorist, we're so preoccupied with him getting the okay that we don't realize Marcus is being very obvious about his intentions. He shows Kirk all the Starfleet ships and models on his desk. He ends the show with a Goliath of a ship, which Marcus mysteriously doesn't talk about. Marcus does, however, mention just how interesting a war with the Klingons would be, and then afterwards he okays the mission, which sets the dreaded course Jim will be embarking. The crazy thing about the Goliath ship is that this ship ends up being the ship which Marcus uses to attack James Kirk at the end. Had we been paying attention, we'd be screaming for Jim not to go.
I know. I understand that you're not at that place yet.
Saw 3D. The entire world was caught off guard by the global phenomenon which is Saw. It originally was released in 2004 and spawned a multi-hundred-million-dollar franchise with its subsequent sequels. The film series is well known for its plot twists and insanely unpredictable endings. However, we all should have predicted Gordon's return as a bad guy in Saw 3D from a mile away. For beginners, if someone doesn't actually eat it in a Saw movie, it's likely that the character's been kept alive for a reason. Rarely has anyone survived Jigsaw's antics without a reason or purpose for them to live. Secondly, Gordon shows up very early in the movie after we haven't seen him in ages, talking in a self-help group therapy session for those who've been made victims to Jigsaw in all of his dangerous games. Sketchy, right? Where's he been? Audience members had to know that an actor this famous and a character this important wouldn't have been brought back just for one scene. If you didn't guess from the moment after you saw him that he would be involved in Jigsaw's antics, you missed a really big and fairly obvious spoiler. But don't worry though, we'll cut you a break.
If this man is everything that you say he is, then the city needs me.
The Dark Knight Rises. While we're on the subject of actors way too famous to be brought on for a simple cameo appearance, here at Screen Rant we all got an eerie feeling when we saw that Marion Cotillard was being cast in Dark Knight Rises. She was billed as a seemingly meaningless character named Miranda Tate. This was a character no one had known from the comics. As we watched the early stages of the movie, we should have gotten suspicious when we learned she had insider knowledge into Wayne Tech that literally no one else had. On top of this, she took an oddly aggressive interest in Bruce's memories of his parents. The one bit of information which should have sent red flags flying everywhere on the field of your mind is Bane didn't want to have her killed. Right? When does Bane not want to have someone killed? We, the audience, had every reason, every reasonable doubt, to know early on that Miranda wasn't who she said she was and that she was Talia al Ghul. Although it was kind of a bummer when we all figured it out since Christopher Nolan denied vehemently that he'd involved Talia in the series, and it kind of deflated Bane's badassery as a villain.
Sit down.
Psycho. Alright, for this next movie, we're going to crank out the old projector and reach far back into movie history. You may have heard of a character named Bates, Norman Bates, before. If you haven't, don't sweat it. We'll fill that noggin of yours right quick. This film originally was released in 1960, but has spawned several sequels, adaptations, and an award-winning successful TV series. Norman Bates was a weird guy from the very start of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. He just had a way about him, a creepy smile, an odd confidence, and something which looked like a secret hiding just below the surface. Marion Crane, a tenant of the motel he owns, sits down for a conversation with Norman after she just overheard a grisly and emotionally abusive argument between Norman and his mother. Norman laughs off Marion's concerns and says she's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds. Little did we realize at the time that Norman was absolutely right, because his mother was just as dead and stuffed as one of his taxonomic decorations. It was the perfect bit of Hitchcock foreshadowing, enough to draw our attention and to remember after learning of the huge twist at the end of the movie, but nothing that spoiled things too soon. Alfred Hitchcock. The Prestige. In Christopher Nolan's 2006 The Prestige, with its magic, mystery, and betrayal, was absolutely confusing the first time we watched it all the way through. We were left just as lost as Hugh Jackman's character throughout the plot. Nolan sure does have a way with confusing his viewers. How was Alfred Borden performing all of his tricks? How was it even possible? Why did he seem so temperamental? And why did it feel like we were missing some huge part of the story? Well, it seems Nolan might have known what he was doing because towards the end, it is revealed Alfred worked in secret with his identical twin brother. However, we could have guessed early on that this was the case, as Michael Caine's character practically lays it out for us in a monologue describing how magic tricks work. If you've seen the movie, we're sure you can remember that monologue. It was what inspired the character throughout to press forward. In it, he described that there always has to be a clever trick in which something ordinary becomes extraordinary. How doubles and secret duplicates are what makes the tricks work. It's exactly what Angler tries to do in literally cloning himself, though he was never able to achieve the success that a simple twin could deliver. Can you guess this movie? When a shark is terrorizing a small town's beaches and eating kiddos and babes alike, a team of unlikely heroes sets out on a rinky-dink boat to kill the giant water-bound beast. They bring along with them a series of tools that they and audiences alike are quite sure won't be up to snuff to take down this monster. Figure it out? Of course you have. It's none other than Steven Spielberg's 1975 Jaws. In retrospect, if you take notice of all the tools the passengers are bringing on, the entire audience should have known the ending immediately. Next time you watch the movie, take more notice of when Cooper elects to bring with him a random tank of compressed air. Why? Your guess is as good as ours. When Brody questions Cooper and asks why he decided to bring that along, he answers that none of them know what the shark would do with it. Might eat it, I suppose. Well, do you remember how Jaws ends? The tank of compressed air is shoved down the shark's throat until someone shoots it, and then the shark literally explodes. Nothing like a little dramatic irony to spoil a movie.
Admittance towards sea is forbidden without the written consent and physical presence of both myself and Dr. Cawley.
Shutter Island. The 2010 mystery thriller Shutter Island was a breath of fresh air for Martin Scorsese's library of completed films. It really is an amazing departure from the normal styling the world has been so accustomed to. In order to show how this movie was spoiled over and over again before we had any idea what was going on, we've got to start at the end. At the conclusion of the movie, we discover that Teddy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, killed his wife after she murdered their children, then suffered severe post-traumatic stress disorder that involves hallucinations and forged scenarios, which allows him to come to terms with all of their deaths. So his therapist, played by Mark Ruffalo, believes the only way for Teddy to overcome these hallucinated scenarios is to play them out and force him to confront reality. With this in our minds, it's clear from the start why things don't make sense from Teddy's perspective. Chuck is clumsy with his gun and holster, which is uncharacteristic of a so-called detective. Teddy doesn't have the permissions and access to do what he wants, which seems shady. Chuck also seems to impede Teddy's investigation when things seem dangerous, which doesn't add up. Spider-Man 3. We've talked about dramatic irony, but do you really know what it is? Essentially, dramatic irony is when someone says early on in a story that it would be bad if blank happened, and then later, that blank thing happens. Obviously a simplified version, but helps to set up this next spoiler that we should have seen coming. It's the most obvious form of foreshadowing, and it's exactly what happened in Sam Raimi's 2007 Spider-Man 3. When Harry, who is dressed up in his dear-deceased dad's old Green Goblin costume, unknowingly attacks his friend Peter Parker, who is dressed up as Spider-Man, an accident happens and Harry incurs a big injury. This injury left him with a terrible case of the amnesia. After Peter Parker and MJ leave his hospital room, the nurse tells Harry he has nice friends, to which Harry answers,
Give my life for them.
When someone in a movie drops a line that serious, we should know that it's going to happen. I mean, why else would it have been said? For a character to set up a moment like that and not pay it off would be lackluster. And lo and behold, Harry did sacrifice himself in a battle with the Sandman and Venom to save his good old buddies.
You know, I didn't think anything could look worse than my yearbook photo.
Final Destination. There aren't many movies out there where the audience walks in knowing everything which will happen and still leave happy. However, the 2001 cult classic and epic phenomenon, which is Final Destination, did just that. We all walked into the movie theater pretty clear on the fact that we were about to watch a lot of teens die in a lot of grisly and gory ways. That much was simple from the trailer alone. However, we didn't know exactly what would happen to each and every character, but we should have as we waited through the opening credits. While we ignored actors' names popping up over spooky-looking images, we were ignoring the mega spoiler for the entire film. The images in the opening credits depict loosely how each and every character would die. That's right, folks, in the opening sequence, had you been paying close attention, you would have been one step ahead of death and your friends. We aren't sure which of those is better, though. In the credits, there was a shadow of a hanging doll, spinning blades in a fan that looked pretty sharp and dangerous, a picture of a guillotine that might chop off somebody's head, an image of what looks like a person lying down and being stabbed in the chest. It's all laid out in advance for us.
Oh, leave him alone.
Shaun of the Dead. Edgar Wright's 2004 fantasy action zombie spoof Shaun of the Dead is one of those wonderful parodies of genres that's able to remain a part of the genre while mocking it. Just as Cabin in the Woods mocks horror movies while also being a horror movie, Shaun of the Dead made fun of every zombie movie ever while also being one of the best zombie movies to ever be made. However, one of our favorite parts is that the whole movie is essentially described for us when we didn't even realize it. This moment happens when Danny gives Shaun a plan for a night of shenanigans. We'll have a Bloody Mary first thing, have a bite at the king's head, a couple at the Little Princess, we'll stagger back here, bang, back at the bar for shots. If you paid close attention to the speech, you would have known immediately how everything was going to play out for the night. The first zombie that attacks them is named Mary, as in a Bloody Mary. Shaun's rotten stepdad gets a bite taken out of his head, as in grabbing a bite at King's head. Liz and her friends stagger back, and they all end up at a bar taking shots and firing shots at zombies pushing in through the windows. Which of these hidden spoilers were your favorite? Which hidden spoilers would you have added to the list? Make sure to let us know in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to share and like this video and click that subscribe button to join our notification squad so you can stay up to date with all of our videos. You don't want your friends to know more than you, do you? And here's the answer for the emoji quiz before we forget. Well, did you get it? Let us know. Thanks for watching.